Hey, welcome back, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to start building Kartra sequences without overthinking them. And I know this is a common issue, but we're going to talk about it like beginner level. So before we dive in here, I just want to say if you like these videos and my channel, please feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out on any additional videos that I'm going to be creating in the future. You'll get notified as soon as they come out. Lastly, make sure you stick around always to the end of my videos because I'm going to show you how you can expedite the process of designing these things in Kartra so you don't have to go through all the little knickknacks inside of the area, try to figure out what they do, and of course, be certain that you're not messing things up. So stick around to the end. But right now, let's go ahead and dive into the sequence creation procedures. I'll show you how easy they are to get these knocked out. So right inside of Kartra here, I'm going to enlarge my screen here. What we're going to do is we're going to go under communications, and once we go to communications, then we're going to drop down into sequences. So first of all, let me tell you what a sequence is. A sequence is kind of like an automated process that's going to go on behind the scenes, that once you set it up, it just runs based upon a series of actions that are predetermined. So when we set those things up. So people use sequences for a lot of different reasons. If you've ever used a software program like Infusionsoft, which is far more complicated and a lot more robust, there's tons of things that you can do with them. We have less of that option, of those options available here in Kartra, but still very, very powerful. So when it comes to sequences, we can think about it as, so for example, if somebody opts in, a lead opts in for a free report or something like that, then the sequence can deliver that free report to the person. But also, what happens when a person gets that free report? Then they may need to go into a sequence that we use to send them emails about valuable information to nurture that lead in order to get them to buy something, for example. All right. So you have to think about your sequences in a couple of different ways. And the way that I like to think about them is it's an entry point and an exit point. And I like to keep my sequences predefined right into that range. So one sequence might be the lead opts in, and then the goal of that sequence is to get the lead to download the thing that they came for, and then that's the end of the sequence. Okay. So that makes everything very easy to sort. So then what would be the next step? So after a lead downloads your free instrument, your lead magnet or whatever, then the goal would be to get them to do something else, right? When that might be, if you're running a consultant-based company, the goal might be to get them to request a consultation. Or the goal might get them to be upgrade or to buy something else. So that would be another sequence. And that sequence would have a number of steps, emails, content delivery, etc., with the action of getting them to that next step. And then that would identify the point at which they would no longer be in that sequence. Okay. So when we design a sequence, let's go in and let's look at how we actually set this up from the inside. I'm going to go ahead and design a new sequence so I can walk you through the steps. So we hit the plus button here, we can start the name of the sequence, and I'll show you one of the nice little ninja ways to do what I just talked to you about. So we can say opted in needs to download. Oops. Okay, so you can see it by the name of the sequence here what the idea is. They opted in already, now they need to download the thing. Now in the public description, you got to be a little bit mindful because when people can go in and see what list they're subscribed to, you don't want to see something like, hijack person's email or write something ridiculous, right? So in the public description, we could just say opted in for ebook, for example. Okay, so they know what they actually did. So we're going to create that. And then we're going to go into the sequence builder. And this is kind of where all the magic happens. Okay. Now we have a couple of things to look at here. We have all of our items down the left side of the screen here. And then we have up here at the top, we can arrange our items, right? That's just a quick and dirty way if things are all over the place to straighten them out. And then we can arrange our process horizontally or vertically, right? So we can go move from left to right, or we can move from top to bottom. I'll just leave it here at top to bottom now because it's easy to just build a little bit of a flow. We can zoom out of the process or we can zoom in. That's another option there as well. And in the beginning, you can't really scroll around with holding down the right click and drag like it says. But when you have more icons on the screen here, then the screen will, or the canvas will let you scroll around. Okay. So the left click and drag is to move things like this. We can move that up and down. I do find that process in Kartra, unfortunately, to be a little clunky. In some softwares that have these kind of canvas builders, you can just slide everything around really easy. Okay, so the starting rules are, how does the system know when to put somebody or to push that lead into a sequence? You have a number of options here. You can click on this, and Kartra allows a whole lot of different ranges of flexibility of how to kickstart a sequence. And this can get pretty tricky. You can literally, from the point that somebody opts in, they put their name into a form, that can trigger the sequence to get started. And here, if you click down, you can see all the opt-in forms that you have created previously. You can use tags to kickstart the sequence. You can use lists, an order. So for example, if somebody buys something, you can kickstart a sequence of page visit. So if somebody visits a certain page, like a landing page or a sales page, and they're already in your lead system, then you can trigger that off. It could also be a cart abandonment. So if somebody goes to a certain page, they look at your cart and then they leave, you can trigger a sequence with that. That's some advanced ninja stuff there. Another sequence can trigger it too, and of course an automation. Now again, you can't get overwhelmed with all of this. Kartra just gives you lots of options for the more advanced people, but I like to keep things really simple, and what I like to do is always use tags. So on the form, when somebody opts in the options, as I shown in a previous video, I assign a tag, opted in. Now when they opt in, then what you want to do is use that tag to trigger the sequence, okay? So I don't have a tag here in particular. If I just say no tag, and let's just say that I have, I'm just going to create a tag here real quick, okay? And then we're going to just do test tag, okay? And the description is testing a tag, okay? I'm not going to put that into a category, no expiration date, nothing like that, okay? So we have to put no category in particular in order for that to create. Okay, so I'm going to use that as the tag, the test tag. Now, when somebody or a lead is assigned this tag, then it's going to kickstart this sequence for them. Okay, now as a standard practice, and Kartra doesn't even show this, and I don't know why, but I've come through a program like with Infusionsoft where they teach you to do this for really, really good reasons. What you want to do always at the beginning of your sequence is to do a split right away. Now, I'll tell you why this happens. What a split does is it basically is a yes or no, okay? And one of the things that we want to do, for example, is if a lead gets on your list, all right, and let's say that this list is to give them a free product, sometimes people will enter into lists multiple times. Sometimes they'll, if they have bought a product, then they'll go back to your website and then opt in on something, and that sequence may be all about selling them something that they already have. And if you already have that, then you don't want to be sending them all these sequence emails, because usually in the first email, you're giving them what they want. Like if it's an ebook, for example. So if you give them the ebook right away, then there's no reason for them to get multiple emails about purchasing something when they already have it. So that's the goal of using this kind of a split. So when you do the split, I set that up as right after the next step. Okay, and then it can run at any time. So I always leave all of these automations just kind of checked off. And then here are the options. So for example, if I go to this and I say, let's say that the person has a product. There's so many different options here, and that's what I love about Kartra. Let's say they have access to a membership, which means they bought something already. So let's say in this case, they have access to my soft tissue system, and they have access to any level, okay? So if they have access to any of those things, okay, then what we now have is a split, and it's gonna say true or false, okay? If they have access to that, then what we're gonna do is that we are going to send that email, okay? And I'll show you how to set this up in 1 second. Actually, we gotta go ahead and do this right now, okay? We're gonna do that right after the next step, okay? We can, again, leave the date and time and everything else similar. We can put the name of the broadcast. This is for your reference only. So I'm just gonna say, deliver free ebook, okay? So that's what this email is. It's just gonna give them the link. Now, when you set up your gateway, okay, then your gateway is going to be essentially what you're gonna send your email through, okay? So the sender name, I put that my name so they recognize me. And the email, I'm just gonna leave this as a default, you know, the sending from the Kartra system, but you can certainly put in another email address that you want to be shown when Kartra email goes out. That doesn't mean that it's gonna go through that email address. It means that this is what it's going to say that the email is from, like a reply to. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this at the default at the moment. The recipients, okay, Now, if you're setting this up correctly, the recipients for the most part should be anyone reaching this step. But the other way of setting this up, split up campaign or option, as I showed you, is send it if they are not subscribed to a list. Okay, so this becomes a little tricky to set this up. You can do the same thing as the split that I just showed you if you set it up this way. Okay, but I'm going to show you a different way to do this. Okay, so send if, I'm going to put that anybody that reaches this step, okay, is going to get that. So we're going to put add, okay, and then there's nothing else to add there. Now, here's one thing that I'm going to remind you to do. Anybody as a marketer needs to take advantage of split testing. Now, split testing is when you send two different versions of the same thing, and your goal is to find out what people are going to respond better to. To be honest with you, and this irks me to no end, especially when you buy certain campaigns in Kartra that are already done from these experts, is that you should never send a single email. Okay, a single email. At bare minimum, you should be split testing the subject or the opener line for an email, because not everybody's going to respond to the same thing. So I'm just going to tell you right now, before we get too far into this other stuff, is always split test. That means that you can have two different emails and you can kind of change, at least bare minimum, change the headline so you can see what people will open more. Okay. Now the content, we're not going to get too far into this, but we'll talk about this in a separate video, is that this is where you see the split screen here where you can actually do the split test. Okay, so I'm just going to do some stuff here. I'm going to put test A here, and then I'm going to put test B on that one. Okay, and that should be enough. Is it enough for me to actually, I'm just going to go hello, and I'm just going to go hello. Okay, so now it'll let me move to the next screen. We'll talk about email on another one. Okay, now when you always run a split test, it's going to ask you to pick a winner, and I never pick automatically. I always run the split test so I can look at the data, and we're not going to deal with automations right now. Okay, all right, so let's go back to what I was talking about here. So you have this split, okay, and the split is a decision value. Okay, so if the person had bought a product like we had set it up or something else, and they did, so that was true, then they're going to go right to this email that we just created. Okay, now they've gotten the content already. Really what we need to do at that point is to complete the sequence. Okay, because they're done. They don't need to get all the additional marketing emails. And the only caveat to that would be is if they actually, it's a 10-part series of a program or something like that that you're going to deliver as part of the value. It wasn't just an ebook or a quick download. Okay, so for obvious reasons, you'd leave those people in there. But this split is, for example, if it's just a simple ebook or something like that. All right, so if they have that stuff, then you would split it. Now, here, what I would say is that again, the complete just lets you know that when they're done. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this email here. We're going to clone it, and then obviously, if they did not have a product, let's say they're a brand new lead, then you would absolutely go to that, right? They would get their delivery, their product. Now, this is the normal sequence, right? So this would say download your ebook, right? Now, from that point, there's a number of different options on what you might do. You might send them multiple emails to remind them to download their product. And there are a couple of different sequences to do this. I won't dive into it too far. But for example, there's ways to trigger if somebody clicks on a link in the email that it means that they downloaded the thing that they're supposed to download. And then that would tell us that they're done with the sequence. Does that make sense? So we could send multiple emails here delivering our product. So let's say you had 10 videos that you were going to deliver to somebody. You would write up your email, just like I showed you how we build that email piece, and then you would just keep cloning your emails, and then you would continue moving them down and connecting them. Okay? So you see here, I missed a little connection here. We're going to make sure that we always connect all of those things. All right? And then we would continue cloning. Okay? And then we go back and edit all of these emails. And then when they're done with the sequence, you would always, again, make sure that we put the complete in there to let us know that the person actually finished the sequence, okay? So with that basic idea, okay, this is how you put together a sequence. Now there are a couple of other things that you can do. You can see all of these other options that go down the screen. I show you how to use a split, okay? Sending an email, okay, we did that because these are all the emails right here. You can send an SMS, that's a text message, but that's a whole nother animal of itself, but that is an option that you can do. When people reach certain steps, you can add or remove tags. That's another way to do things. Okay, you can also unsubscribe people from the list or unsubscribe people from a sequence. So the list part and the sequence and the tags, again, all get intermingled because there's lots of different ways to skin a cat with how Kartra works, just like we talked about with the starting rules. But what I like to do, I'm going to show you, is let's back up to this step right here. So let's say the person, again, had a previous product that was already purchased. The purpose of this sequence in particular was to get them to buy something. So in that case, it was true. Here, they delivered the lead magnet. I told them where they can download it. End of story. They're done. Now, I can go push them to the point where the sequence is complete, but really what I want is I want them to not be in this sequence anymore, because when I go to my dashboard, I don't want to see how many people are in the sequence. Yeah, they're in the sequence, but the issue is they've already run through the sequence and it's already done. So one of the things that I like to do here, I'm going to erase this, and I literally want to unsubscribe them from the sequence at this point. Okay, and I don't need to wait. They can do it right away. Okay, I can leave those options there. And again, I'm going to unsubscribe them from the sequence. Okay, and the sequence here is the, what did I name this one? Nurture sequence, fulfillment, opted in, needs to download. Okay, so that's the name of this sequence, and I'm going to create that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, there is my removing them from the sequence. So basically, once they've gotten that download link, I'm going to remove them from the sequence. And again, you always have to remember to activate these guys. Okay, so you can see here that after they get that email, then I'm basically going to unsubscribe them from the sequence, and then it moves them to completion. Okay, and that way it doesn't make on my dashboard my data look all messed up like all these people are in a sequence when they've been long completed from the sequence. Remove them from it. Okay, so again, that same process can happen. I can clone this, and this is how quickly you can move through all of this, and you can stick this down here too. So let's say that that's the last email in the sequence. Then what we can do is that, actually I moved that to the wrong place because that's the completion. Okay, so here we're going to unsubscribe them from the sequence. The same thing that we did on the other side. We just want to make sure that these guys are all connected, and bickety bam, we activate everything. Okay, so this is in a nutshell how sequences work. Okay, now you can also run automations, you can do go-tos. These are all little tricky elements that you can do in the sequence builder. You can pause, you can do a wait. So you could literally, as an additional option, rather than within the emails, you could delay an email 24 hours or whatever. You can do those things too. You can also put a pause or a wait in there as well. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways, again, depending on what you're trying to do. I'm showing you simplistically how to just kind of get this thing up and running. Always as a standard, what I do is I use tags to trigger sequences to get them started. And then what I use is I always use a split to make sure that I know who's supposed to be in this sequence and who should not be in this sequence, depending on what the sequence is aiming to do. And then I run them through that sequence, and then always toward the end, I unsubscribe them from the sequence and then finish with a complete box. And that way it makes everything simple. And again, to take a look at this, you can arrange your items. Look at how cool this is. Bang. You see how much nicer that looks right now? Okay. So that when we're done with our process here, then all we need to do is to done and exit, okay? And from simplicity standpoint, that is how you get started with sequences inside of Kartra without overthinking it, okay? Once you knock it out, you're done. Your sequence is now going to show up here, and it tells you this is where the key point is, how many active leads are inside of that sequence. So again, when people are done with the sequence, I don't want them showing up as a number on my dashboard because they've already finished it. I only want to know how many people are currently in that sequence awaiting it to be finished. Okay. Over here, you have the actions here. You can clone a sequence. That saves so much work. If you're going to use the exact same sequence for a different opt-in, then you can do that as well. You can, of course, edit it, and you can delete it as well. Now, the other key thing is here, when you turn on a sequence like that, it immediately starts it. If you don't want it running yet, then you have to pause it. so you can pause or resume activity on your sequences. So I hope that helps. That's how you set up a sequence very simply. I don't want to go too depth into all the complex stuff that you can do with sequences, but I hope you get an idea of the robustness that Kartra has with that feature. Now, on the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some more stuff and getting into some features into Kartra to get you up and running really quick when it comes to using this system and not having to overthink it. Beginners get way too overwhelmed when they look at this at the Kartra dashboard and all the things that you can do. I'm going to show you how to navigate it quickly and not get overwhelmed by all of this stuff. One last thing is, again, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, and of course, always play videos to the end, because we're going to talk about how, for example, that you can get access to some of these pre-built templates and designs within Kartra. So a lot of this stuff, you can work through it and try to figure it out on your own. You should have a basic level understanding of these things, but a lot of times what happens is it's so much easier to get access to templates that are really ready-made, and all of this stuff has been basically figured out for you, and you just have to download it and then plug and play. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you check out my description box below. If you're not part of Kartra already, you can get a Kartra trial in there as well, but always be sure to check out that description box and get started today building funnels so you can get to the success that you want to be at. Sam here, thanks for watching.